Dear colleagues, we continue our work in the Ukraine Crisis Media Center. The topic of the next event is presentation of educational project, Open Lessons of Public History. Our guests are Anna Pogrebna, Project Manager, Center for Contemporary Art Foundation, Valeria Karpan, Culture Manager, co-author of the project Novikov House, and also Svetlana Osipchuk, Professor of History, National Technical University of Kyiv, and also I give the floor to our dear guests. Good afternoon. I am Anna Pogrebna, and I'm Project Manager. I'm going to start our presentation. I work in the Center for Contemporary Art Foundation that initiated this open lesson of public history, and these lessons, they sum up the bigger project. There is Memory Voice Dialogue project that was started in spring in Kharkiv, and this is an educational project directed to overcome stereotypes and also for development of cultural critical thinking. And one of the components was focused on the topics of cultural memory and history in the projects. So we focus on practices to work with communities in order to reinforce these communities and to transform them in co-authors in cultural projects. And we continued these participatory works concerning history and historic memory. And we proposed to our participants the ideas of the projects, and during summer several projects were supported by us, and parallel to this we saw that during the last several years different grassroots initiatives appeared that concerning the same topics, and they were developed in the framework of projects of different education project of our colleagues. And for us, it was important to collect and gather all these activities, all these activists, and to understand the topics, the frameworks, and what lessons were learned in the course of realization of their projects, because these are interesting and non-typical projects in the cultural and historic area. They deal with the stories, the history of different families, family photos, dramatic experience of the recent years, the experience of war or deportation, also heritage, historic places, and all this is the subject to study, the material for cultural projects. And we are interested in presenting this, and also we would like to see how this experience of people correlates with the study of these topics and the studies of different people in order to understand how to continue our work and how to cooperate better. So these public lessons will happen on the 13th till 15th of October in National Historic Museum, and there will be several networking sessions and 2 evening discussions and 4-day thematic blocks. So these blocks, there will be presentation of cultural projects that will end and result in broader discussions with the participants, participation of historians, anthropologists, and painters, journalists. And for us, it is of importance to work on practical experience and also to reinforce interdepartmental cooperation, to work with historians and the museum workers. And we are happy, and we greet those who joined our project, and these people will join us in our discussions. And also we are thankful to National Museum of History of Ukraine, where all these events will take place. And this is really important, that these open lessons on on history will be in the place where history is popularized. Also, we should say that this event will happen supported by Goethe Institute in Kiev. And before giving the floor to my colleague, I will briefly outline our program. The first event will be on the 13th of October at 7 p.m. This will be on history of Ukraine and Belarus. Alexei Sorokin and Vratochkin and Katerina Desem will moderate. And for us, it is important to start discussions on public history, because this is a broader view on what will be going on in the further days, and cooperation between historians and civil society, and also that will lead to democratization of participatory practices to include new participants, and stories and new formats will appear. And about the context in Ukraine and Belarus, we will discuss these issues on the first day, and second day there will be discussion on art and memory, and Katerina Mishchenko, Katyana Shubinska, Katerina Batanova will moderate, and we will speak about the experience of projects that were presented recently during the last half year. And what is the role of curator who decide to work with this, and what will be our lessons about. So these will be 4 thematic blocks about things and people, ordinary people. We will study how to work with the memory in the daily project, and the second lesson will be on closer history, the memory, traumatic events of recent years, and also to work with the media and archives, and also how to work and store artifacts. And also the fourth topic on cultural memory in cities, and tactics and cultural practices that improve the situation. The detailed program can be found on the page of our organization on the internet, smarter.org.ua, and on the page events on Facebook, CCA Foundation, and there is detailed program about all the participants I didn't mention today. You can find more detailed information there. And the last I want to tell you is to remind once again that it will happen in the National Museum of History of Ukraine, and there will be tickets, and this will be the contribution to the development of this museum. I give the floor to Valeria Karpany, who participates on one of the blocks on the memory in the city, and she is going to tell us about her projects and her expectations.
Thank you. My project is already in the schedule. I will tell about Novikov's House 1893. This is our project. The background is as follows. This project is related to the initiative CSM, Mosaics of the City. This is educational project. Last year it was educational program for cultural managers, artists. We worked with participatory art. The project was realized At the support of Goethe Institute, we went to Germany, where we studied German arts, and after the educational program there were several projects launched which supposed the participation of civil society, of communities. Our joint project was previous Oleg Perkovsky, artist from Lviv. Novikov's house is the name of the house in Верхний Wall Street 12. This is a specific cultural monument, a house in Podol district. This is historical monument, but it is neglected. This is about neglection of cultural history. So restoring the interest, focusing attention of local authorities and community in general to this problem, to addressing this issue. This is our task, and we selected this house because it is in the public environment. First it was the world installation. Symbolically, we crossed the building by some special lighting, and then it turned into the action. The project is already 1 year long, and it will be more long term because more and more participants join us. Now we work with Kiev Mahila Academy students. Ksenia Vita, she helps me with the project. We develop an educational public program. The first event was showing a movie Marshal Chevsk. Near this house we demonstrated this movie. So empirically we found that this area is easy to use by the community, so community of Podol district is interested in using this area. On October 18 there will be lectures where we will try to find out how to develop activist strategy to return and to focus attention of people and to gather people around the history of historical monuments and history of Kiev in general. We plan to develop more systematized program, including an educational component and participatory artist actions near the house directly, and in parallel with these actions journalists' investigations take place. In particular, Vera Baldenyuk investigation helped us very much to progress in this project. We are talking about networking, because working alone with activists and artists, lawyers, journalists, we from time to time have meetings with people who also conduct similar investigations. We try to make those cases public and to reach joining more people and to develop joint strategies of opposing illegal this house, Novikov's house, is rented illegally to one organization which is in debt to our city council, and long-term trials in court, they nivellate the moment of unlawfulness of this rent, and for a year we reached the conclusion that joint discussion debates about this house and its history and its importance for the city will help us to put this case to an end, because behind the curtains there is and the lack of interest of the city. This house is being restored confidential, nobody knows, so our debates help to shift to higher level. I'm giving the floor to Svetlana Sipchuk. Thank you for invitation. My name is Svetlana. I'm a historian and I deliver lectures of histories in Kiev Polytechnical Institute for the students of non-historical departments, and I thank Anna for inviting me to this project, because such projects, they are very important. As for me, as a professor of university, I can see this as a gap between the history, how it is presented by the state, and between local histories of districts, communities, and families. Even my students not always can connect such narratives that their family or their community experienced this big history and how it influenced the smaller groups. So the project is to make a link between academic science, between academic history on the one hand, and on the other hand, groups of activists, volunteers, whose activities are not well known, although they make their best and put big efforts to restore the history on sites. I moderate the 4th lessons dedicated to the memory on site. The lesson will be delivered on Saturday. My section will help to understand how grassroots initiatives may meet a broad circle of participants, citizens, residents of the city, and how we can help each other. I would like to announce this public event in the scope of Novikov's project on October 15. The lecture on October 17 at 5 p.m. in Podol at Khrishatitska 10A. We sought to hold it near Novikov's house. We will be selecting different venues, cooperating with hubs. Vladislava Osmak will be lecturing, and we will try to find the strategy how to combat such unlawful seizures of cultural monuments. If someone who will who hear this announcements, how to contact you via Facebook, email. Yes, Facebook, in the description of events there is our email address there, and at SmartRog.ua there are also our contact details. We will be glad to answer all your questions. We don't have any questions in the audience. Thank you very much for your briefing. Our next event at 12:30 in 10 minutes.